We've talked about Unreal Engine a bunch on the show, including testing out different approaches to doing low-budget virtual production setup, like using trackers and a green screen to put Justin in some other environment, or even a projector to do some of the same. There's all kinds of tech out now that makes it very doable, but it's still a bit complicated to get things moving, until now. This is the AXIBO PT4. It's a motion control system unlike any that I've used, which can directly connect with Unreal Engine to control the virtual camera and wirelessly, which is just the most of all the awesome things. But I'll get to that later. And as always, with an episode like this, yes, AXIBO is partnering with us. No, they cannot dictate my opinion. And the whole reason we are showing you this is because it is pretty f***ing awesome. So first, let's take a look at this thing. We have the slider, which just like everything else here is modular. So you can buy more rods and extend your slider out if needed, like I have here. You also have some solid mounting points on the bottom, some 3/8 and 1/4-20 points as well. Then you have the PT4 head, which comes with a slick looking case here. And again, just like everything from AXIBO, comes apart and goes together very easily. And toolless here too. So I'm going to piece this together like so, and then add on the final piece, which is the brains of the unit. And that's this controller here with 2 antennas for our wireless connection. And again, this is all modular. So the brain clicks on here. The pan and tilt motors can be separated by removing the bolts here. So if any one thing breaks, you can address that one piece instead of the entire unit. You can also adjust this joint here for a variety of camera positioning. And with all these adjustment options, I thought maybe there was a balancing process, but thankfully that's not the case. These motors are strong enough for you to just place your camera and go. Really, the adjustment is also you can get your camera into the exact right position, including centering your sensor to the pan and tilt perfectly to get very centered movements. Then to finish our build, we're going to use these Ethernet cables to connect each motor with the brain here, which they call the Edge Compute module. And something small, but I absolutely love, is the fact that it doesn't matter where you plug each motor in. Any of these black slots are going to work. Down here, notched in, is your port to connect to a computer or your network, but all of the rest here can take any motor, which is a good example of what you will notice over and over with this system. And that's how clear it is how the AXIBO team made every decision while truly thinking about the end user, and I love them for that. But with the entire rig built, we can power the system by either slapping 2 MPF batteries on here or using DC power into an outlet. And once it's powered up, you get a very simple menu here. Like the system as a whole, it's very intuitive, so no reason to go into that. Then we have the controller here, which is essentially a PS4 controller. Right out of the box, it connects immediately to the system just by turning it on. And now I can control the system with this controller if I wanted. And not just its movements. Of course, I can do that by holding L1, then hitting L2 and R2 to slide the camera in either direction, or hold L1 again and use the joystick to pan and tilt. You can also use the D-pad to pan and tilt in very small single movements. This allows you to get very precise and zero in on the exact positioning you need. But the controller can do a lot more than just that. First, we can calibrate right here by holding L and hitting the home button. Then I can set keyframes here by going to my start point and hitting X, then go to the next and hit X again, and so on until you have your sequence. After that, I can play the sequence by holding L and hitting the triangle. And I can stop the movement at any point by hitting the big square in the middle. Or jump to different keyframes by hitting left and right on the D-pad, or change the speed by clicking up or down on the D-pad. There's a lot more that you can do, including controlling tracking and time-lapse modes, but while the controller is great, I do prefer to use the app. The best part about the app is that you get to it through a browser, which means you can use it on anything, a phone, a tablet, a laptop, desktop, whatever. And you can connect multiple devices to the app to use at once. To connect, we're going to find the Wi-Fi for the system here, connect to that, then go to the address you find in the controller menu under Wi-Fi. You can also connect straight through Ethernet to your system, but once we have the address, we plug it into the browser and there we are. You can calibrate your system in here as well, and then have a ton of options around how you want to control your camera. The simplest is right here, this plus icon, which you'll find on every page. Hit that and it opens to your basic controls here. But inside keyframes, you have a ton of options as well. First, we have the simple layout. You can go to your different points here and hit set to create a keyframe, or you can shift to advance and really dive into how your move is working, including down here with the keyframe graph. I can grab my points and move them around, adjust my curve, or go here to get very specific. And though I only have 4 points, apparently you can have an infinite amount of keyframes. This also has a full 6-core Linux CPU with a dedicated neural processing unit, which is what makes this an AI system. And with that comes great advantages like tracking. If we jump one tab down, we find the tracking tab, tab, and you can select either the onboard camera or our actual camera that we have mounted, which we can access here thanks to the built-in HDMI port. You'll have picture-in-picture, or you can switch feed to jump to your camera's image and track from that. The tracking itself operates exactly as you would think. Click and drag over your subject, hit start track, and off you go. But the absolute coolest thing with this app outside of the Unreal connection is the fact that you can have multiple people connect to the system in the app at the same time. So you can either have multiple people operating different functions or just tap in to use as a monitor. And I love this so much. Having used multiple motion control systems and only being able to have me or Josh access the controls has always been a pain. But the technology behind this system is essentially the same that's used on much more expensive robot arms for virtual production, but in a smaller, more affordable package, which does bring us to my favorite function, and that is the use of Unreal Engine and this system. Like I said earlier, there's plenty of solutions nowadays for low-budget virtual production. Well, relatively low budget, but this is the quickest and simplest I've ever used. So we're gonna come into virtual production, pop in our IP address here, then we're gonna jump over to Unreal, and we're going to go to our plugins and make sure that the necessary live link plugins are enabled. And before we restart, I'm going to pop in the needed AXIBO plugin inside the project folder. And there's a lot of documentation to walk you through all this, so I'll put that below. Then we'll restart Unreal, open Live Link, and connect through our Sources tab. Then we're going to jump back to our AXIBO app, click the Start Live Link, and again jump back to Unreal. Next, we're going to create a camera, and in our camera's details, we are going to grab the location information and paste that into the AXIBO app here. Again, in our camera's details, we'll add the Live Link controller through Add Component, set the subject representation as our AXIBO system, and we are done. The AXIBO is now fully controlling our virtual camera in real time. So now I can set the scene to work on green screen like we've done in the past, a projector, or like we've seen others do, use a TV as an LED wall. And like I mentioned before, they are clearly thinking about the filmmaker with all of this, which is loud and clear in how simple that they've made it all. And again here with the rendered video option. So if I don't have a computer powerful enough to do real time at the level needed, I can export the Unreal render out as a video, then loop that video into the slider through the AXIBO app. Then AXIBO will sync that move in real time with the exported video from Unreal Engine. I've only had the system up and running for a short time, so I haven't fully tested all this as deeply as I want to, but we are working on that for an episode that will come out in a few months. I'll be putting the system through the paces by creating a minute-long piece utilizing the virtual production capabilities of this thing. So now, while I really love this system, to be honest, when I first started working with it, I did run into some frustrating issues, which was entirely around the Wi-Fi connection. It took a bit of exploring to finally realize that it was an issue with my PC and not the AXIBO, since my laptop and iPhone were connecting without issue. I bring this up because another great aspect to AXIBO is how dedicated they are to helping their customers. If we go to settings page, we have a request support button that will connect you directly, and then they can even push fixes directly to your system if needed. There's also some things that will allow you to expand the system to work for your focus, iris, and zoom. There's also full support for Drag and Frame, a software that is mostly used for stop motion, but can also be used for real-time motion capture. So all in, this is one of the most versatile and user-focused motion control systems that I've ever used, and one I see not getting outdated as often as others since they've packed so many future-proof functions into this thing. Again, we're going to dive in further into the virtual production capabilities of the AXIBO next year, but if you want to know more about it, links below, and of course, if you aren't subscribed, consider doing that and hit the bell to be notified when we put up more content. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.
See you later. Ta-ta.